Hey YouTubers, it's Rob. Guys, we're having a little fun today. I'm using an old camera that I purchased years ago that I never used very much. I purchased for one reason. It has a function where you can use a pause button and whatever you recorded is saved to a file, and when you start a new recording, if it's within 5 minutes, by using the pause button, it stays on that one file. So when you're done, you could have 40 or 50 different shots and they're all going to be on the same file, so you could upload that without having to go to an editing program and string them all together. What we're going to be doing is making a 4-ingredient meal. It's going to be a delicious slumgullion. That's an old nautical term for a stew that's made in a pot. It's basically 4 ingredients. Not basically, it is 1 onion large, a can of diced tomatoes. I'm cheating because it has green peppers and onions and celery. This is much better than the ones that have the basil or the garlic. It's not bitter. This is the best one they have. A can of corned beef, which is quite expensive, from Brazil. It also only has 4 ingredients. Cooked beef, then salt, sugar, and sodium nitrate. The Trinity. And some nice russet potatoes. I like the little red potatoes better for this, but this is all I have. They're starting to get old. So it's going to be 4 ingredients. Let's get started. The most important thing for the flavor, I think, is onion. You want to use a lot. If you're just using 4 ingredients, the onions I'm using today, or I should say the onion, is it's not a yellow onion. It's not one of those small yellow onions that last forever in the refrigerator. I like those for cooking. For raw onions, the big white ones, the Vidalia, are the best. And I wanted this cutting board to be in the frame, so I have some pencils underneath the other edge, and it's moving around a bit. That's not a good thing to have on a cutting board. If you're cooking for yourself, a little skin never hurts. It adds to the color. It makes a nice yellow brown dye. You can cook, you can dye things with onion skins. Now, we're going to be putting this into an iron skillet and a little bit of oil and caramelizing the onions. They're nice and coarse. They're not diced too fine. Now, we're going to put these in our skillet. We've got it on medium-low. I want these to cook up while I'm getting everything else ready. I'm going to increase that heat just a little bit. I couldn't find my potato peeler, but this camera only has 5 minutes before it starts a new file, so I didn't want to spend too much time looking for it. This is one of those potato peeler gadgets where it does like 4 different things. I prefer just a potato peeler that does one thing, and it does it really good. There's a wonderful video on YouTube about a man in New York that used to sell potato peelers on the street, and he would import them from, I think, Switzerland. They were stainless steel, and he would sell them for $5 a piece, and he made a fortune because he'd sell 100 of them a day and he'd make like $3 profit off of them. I think that heat's a little too high. So I'm going to leave a link to that video. It's a guy, he's living in a fancy apartment in New York City, and he used to sit out on the street, and he had some homeless people that would help him because they would let him know when the police were coming so he could stop selling the potatoes, because he would set up a stand and start peeling, and he had a patter, he had a spiel. He would sell just like those old-time appliance guys. It slices, it dices, it peels, it cuts it. They had a spiel they would tell the audience to get them to buy. Of course, if they bought one, they had to buy another one as a gift for somebody else. He didn't just let a person buy one. So it's a pretty interesting article or video. He was married to a very attractive woman. He lived very well importing potato peelers and selling them to crowds of people on the streets of New York. Very interesting video. But anyway, these are little russet potatoes. I like the red potatoes a lot for this type of little stew. I don't know what you call this. I call it a slumgullion. Now, we'll do a little bit of cleanup. I threw those potato peelings in the garbage, but I'm wanting to start a little bit of a compost container on the balcony, because I want to start growing vegetables and stuff out there on the balcony again. I went to Home Depot and Walmart for the garden department. First time I'd been in the car since March 8th. I haven't been, I've been walking around and going outside and stuff, but I haven't been anywhere in the car in 2 months. And I went to see if I could get some potting soil and a big bag of dirt so I could start growing some stuff on the balcony. I know summertime is when no one grows anything, but I like growing those Malabar spinach and other things that they do really well in hot weather on the balcony. And I'm thinking about doing a little guerrilla gardening this year and planting some places where it's not my property. But I couldn't find any place that was selling the soil. I'm putting these potatoes in with the onions right now. Didn't do a very good job on this guy, did I? So I don't know where I'm going to get some soil. I need to get a little dirt to start the seeds. But yeah, it was the first time I was out. I had the groceries delivered about 4 weeks ago, and I ran out of eggs, but I'm pretty much got enough stuff to eat for a while. But lemon juice and cooking oil and things like that. So this meal is just going to be 4 ingredients, and it's a very wholesome, hearty dish. You can add a lot more. You guys have probably been watching my cooking videos before, and you know I usually add about 30 ingredients. I usually, whatever I've got in the kitchen, I throw in the pot, if it goes together. But I thought it'd be fun to just start doing some really small amount of ingredient recipes that people are at home cooking up stuff. They might not have a lot of things in the cupboard. This is something that's very tasty. And if you have other ingredients, you could have other vegetables like peas or corn, even some greens, and you could throw in there. It would help. Or celery. I really miss celery, but I only wanted 4 ingredients. I got the camera just so you could see this, so let's do that. Alright. Now, the onions are about halfway done. Now, I'm going to add some spices to this, and it's more than 4 ingredients, but I consider spices part of the cooking you would normally have, like you would normally have a skillet. So that's an ingredient. We're putting in some Italian seasoning, and there again I guess I'm cheating because it's got like 7 ingredients. What? Marjoram, thyme, rosemary, sage, oregano, and basil. I've never eaten savory by itself. I'm not sure what that is, or even grown it before, but I've grown the others. So ordinarily I'd put on a bunch of garlic and parsley, but we're sticking with the Italian right now. Okay, we're not going to add the tomatoes until the last part. When everything's cooked, we're going to add this. You don't want to add a lot of acidic material into a cast iron skillet because it releases a lot of iron into the food, and the older you get, the less iron you need. It could be, for men in particular, it could be bad for your heart. When you're younger, you need a lot of iron, but when you get older, you don't need as much, usually. Now, let's have some fun with the old key on the can. This makes me feel like a kid again. This is something that not only is from last century, it's I think from the century before last century. It just brings back memories. We get a lot of our corned beef from Brazil and Uruguay, which I'm happy about. I wouldn't buy it if it was from China. Sorry, Chinese. Alrighty. Now all my vegetarian viewers are unsubscribing, but this isn't for you. It's for people at home that may not have a lot of stuff in the cupboard, and this is something that's going to be very tasty. Bloop, bloop. You could probably, if you're just making for yourself, you could probably use 1/2 the can and use this can on another batch. This is more like a flavoring. You're not really eating this so much for the corned beef. The corned beef is not the main ingredient in this particular dish. So I think I'm going to save part of that can for something else later. And we'll throw the rest of these. We're not expecting it to hold any shape. This is just going to fall apart and be used as a spice, a condiment, a flavoring. And it's nutritious too. So we can add the corned beef now, even though the potatoes aren't done or even halfway done. But the juices and the oil from the beef will be an added welcome ingredient to the potatoes. They're going to soak up any flavor. And in fact, I might add a tiny bit of water. We don't want it to dry out. Now, we're going to let that simmer for a good 15 minutes. Now, you could make the potatoes in a pressure cooker in just a few minutes and have them cooked and add them later when you add the potatoes, which would make the meal go a little quicker. While we're waiting for those potatoes to cook down, I want to tell you real quick, this is something I bought at the dollar store that really helps the food budget, makes things go a long way. This is just a standard macaroni and cheese dinner, but I got it at the dollar store, and it comes with a packet of cheese already in it. It's a cheese sauce. What I do with this is I cook up the macaroni, and then I put a lot of frozen vegetables like carrot and broccoli and cauliflower in the microwave for like 3 minutes in the steamer. And then when the macaroni's done, I add some tuna fish and the vegetables with parsley and garlic. And then when I remove the pasta from the pan, I put in some celery and onions in the pan, and I saute it. And after they're done, I add the steamed vegetables with the cheese sauce, and then add the pasta, and add a can of tuna in the end with some chopped salad olives. And it is delicious. And it goes a long way. It's very inexpensive. Okay, let's see how the potatoes and corned beef are coming along, and onions. Yeah, I think another 5 minutes we can add the tomatoes. And these are almost done. They're almost getting soft where you can eat them. Okay, if you noticed, we didn't put any salt. That's because the corned beef has so much salt already in there, sodium, along with their salt in the tomatoes. So you don't want to add any salt at all. But if I were to add other spices, I would have added parsley, and I would have some red pepper, and black pepper and turmeric, and don't get me started. But yeah, don't add any salt. I think you're going to find the onions are well cooked now, nice and translucent, caramelized, and the potatoes are done. They're still a little bit firm, and the meat is starting to get a little bit of crusty on parts on the bottom of the pan, so that's going to add some good flavor after we add the tomatoes. So in fact, let's go ahead and do that now. These are our tomatoes that have the onions and celery and green peppers in there. Don't buy the ones that have the basil or the garlic. I found them to be bitter and unpleasant. I think I mentioned that. I like the little pop top. Simple pleasures. Now, after we add this, we're going to let it simmer on low for like another 10 minutes and let these flavors mingle or marry. I'm just getting some of the cooked parts on the bottom of the pan up. And I'm going to rinse out this can to get a little bit extra liquid. Just a little bit. We're not making soup, but we don't want it to get too dry. This lid doesn't fit the skillet too well. It's really helpful to have a lid that does the job. Okay. Now we'll let that sit for like 10 minutes and come back. I know I'm going to get some people in the comments section, they say, well, they would have added this or that. Let me tell you what I would have added if I was going to add more than 4. I would have added just a few chickpeas because they give a nice crunch. They don't ever get soft. And the tomatoes and the potatoes and onions are all going to be soft. And the chickpeas have a nice mild flavor and they give a nice crunch, but you don't want to add a lot to the meal here. Another thing is the peas, because of the color. When you have the small green peas, they give a different look to the meal by complementing the red and the white of the ingredients. The other thing I would probably add is mushrooms, because I just love mushrooms. And a lot more spices. Okay, everybody, let's see what we got going. All right. Nice little casserole. The potatoes are still not overcooked. The onions have developed as much flavor as they're going to develop. And we didn't add too much meat. Let's turn off the heat. Now,